All right, so you're listening to the Matt Pierce blog. Today is Monday, the 14th day of April 2025. This is real talk from the PR guy, real talk from the ground. We're going to talk about this. I'm Matt Pierce, and today I want us to dive in to the topic that most folks outside of the world, our energy world, do not get. And I think that too many on the inside pretend that they want to understand it, but this is a really complicated thing that a lot of people just don't understand. And we're going to talk about oil. More specifically, we're going to talk about shale oil, the Texas Permian, the break evens, the markets, all this misinformation that's out there. And we're going to talk about the Pete's and repeats of the industry, the guys in the field who are too busy sounding smart to actually be useful. I know that just pissed a lot of y'all off, but so be it. I think we need to jump into this because we've spent a little while having this conversation about oil and gas. But I think that here's what you need to know up front, right? Every single well, and you've heard me say this before, every single well has a break-even price. And that's all different. It depends on the geology, the depth, the pressure, surrounding infrastructure, the cost of capital that brought that well to life. I mean, there's a lot of different things that figure into this. But if you want an average, okay, just something to kind of hang your hat on, right? The average break even for wells in the Texas Permian Basin right now is around $65 a barrel. That's your threshold, right? Think about it. That's the line in the sand, right? Above that, most producers are making pretty good money. Below that, they're still making money, but they're going to start sweating. Okay. So I want you to keep in mind $65 to $75 is kind of that threshold. Now, $65 a barrel. That doesn't mean that people within this industry are jumping for joy, right? That doesn't mean they're like, "Oh my gosh, they're making money, they're breaking even." They're just not making as much money as they once were. Okay. But $65 a barrel means that the machine basically keeps running, but it runs cautiously. Okay. And that's where you see a lot of people, these naysayers, these good company hands out there talking about, well, I'm still working. We're adding more jobs every day. And we're just going like gangbusters out here. The reality is, the reality of this is, uh, they are still working. They're just doing it a little bit more careful. Okay. It means that CapEx, the capital expenditures, are completely allocated, right? These budgets are strapped. Some wells get drilled, others don't. You know, the producers, this is when internally the producers, the guys that I work with, that's when they start reducing their activity. Okay. Now you're going to see these people say, well, I'm still working. I still got my job. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, all this stuff. That's fine. But the reality of it is this is at $65 a barrel. This is oil patch speak for we're going to put the brakes on things and we're not going to sound too scared while we do it. Right? We're going to hit the brakes, but we're still going to maintain a little positivity. Okay? But there's a curveball in all this. There is a curveball in every bit of what I'm talking about here. There's a curveball. And that curveball is the Trump administration. And make no mistake about it. They are setting up the messaging for everything that they said in the previous campaign, right? They've been pretty clear that they want to see WTI, West Texas Intermediate, hover around $50 to $55 a barrel, maybe even lower. Why? To keep gas prices low. Mm-hmm. Because if gas prices are low, voters are pretty happy. And they think that this is going to apply pressure to the global markets, right? But remember, there was a curveball I was talking about, and that curveball is that price point puts a lot of Texas producers at risk. It's beneath their break even level. That's Trump takes a lot in consideration, but also a lot of times he takes a lot of bad things into consideration. He doesn't consider the layoffs. He doesn't consider the delayed completions. He doesn't, you know, take into consideration the frac crews getting cold stacked. You know, a lot of stress out there for folks whose livelihood depends on drilling, hauling, and pumping. He doesn't get that. And I think that's where he loses. This is where a guy who's out of touch with reality, this is where it begins to show. I mean, really. And ultimately, right now, gas at $60, well, oil at $60 a barrel, it isn't doing much for the consumer right now. It's just not, because you have too many states like Texas, like California, that are putting their tax base first, right? Because think about it. How can governments make money? Taxes and fees. They don't really have any other way to make money. Taxes and fees. Now, the shale game, it's the shale game. It's high risk, high decline. And I think that this is worth having a conversation about. The mechanics of shale production. And this is not something that the political wonks and the business people of the world and even the attaboyers out there, you know, the good old boys, want to have a conversation about. But I think it's something we need to have a talk about, because this is where things get real murky within the industry, and outsiders and analysts and, you know, these Pete and repeat guys. This is where they get misunderstood. This high risk, high decline thing, right? Because shale oil is not like conventional oil. In a conventional well, okay, you tap in to a pressurized reservoir, right? And that thing can flow for years, sometimes decades. Shale is a whole different beast. Shale production is very volatile, both economically and geologically. Shale production is volatile. Some of you are asking me in the comments and in questions and emails kind of how this thing works. And in short, I'm going to break this down for you. Shale wells are drilled horizontally into very tight rock formations. And I'm working on an interview with a geologist right now who can explain this a lot better than I could, but I'm going to give you my bare kind of assessment of this. But shale wells are usually drilled horizontally into very tight rock formations. Then they're hydraulically fracked with high pressure fluids that it cracks the rock and then it lets the oil kind of seep out, right? When it works, we have this thing called IP, initial production. The IP rate is sky high when it works. That's the beauty of it. It's not flashy. It's not sexy. It's very front loaded. You might get 1,000 to 1,500 barrels a day in the first month, but then that's when the dark side of shale comes into play at, right? The dark side is that while you get this very heavy upfront production, those rates are going to decline very, very quickly. And we're talking 60 to 70% decline in the first year, sometimes even more. So what do producers do? They drill more wells. They keep the machine fed, right? Because they know that shale is very, very volatile. And that's what makes shale very different from conventional drilling. It's not a set it and forget it kind of model. This is something, it's a treadmill, right? It's something I should probably get on a little more often. If you stop drilling, the entire system slows down. The entire system slows down. And that brings us back to pricing. What a lot of the folks out there don't realize is they don't realize that shale is very capital intensive, not like the old conventional wells. These wells are not cheap. The frac crews, the sand, the water, the logistics, the leases, all of this shit costs money. So when the price of oil drops, okay, these high cost producers, especially in shale, are the first ones to feel it. They are. So when WTI drops to 60, 65, 50, 55 marks, you start seeing a little bit of pain because shale is very volatile. And you have to keep this thing running. Okay? You have to keep this kitty fed. Now, there's a lot of dangerous personalities in the patch, and I want to talk directly to the folks that are out there working in it, right? The boots on the ground. You know who you are. If you've worked a single week in this business, you've met two types of people that I'm about to describe to you. Okay? There's two types of people. First off, we're going to talk about the ones that tend to comment on my TikTok a lot and on my YouTube page quite a bit. These are the know-it-alls. You heard me talk about the Pete, and repeat guys. These are the ones promoting and parroting corporate talk, right? They're out there touting it like it's the gospel. They say that we're fine because they still have a job today. They dismiss questions. They downplay the risk. They scoff at all the people that are out there suggesting that a storm might be coming in. These guys are very dangerous because they create a very false sense of security. They treat volatility like it's fake news. And what's worse about that is they influence the mid-level decision makers who are depending on field level feedback for production strategies. So the guys who are out there listening at the Pete's and repeats, they're putting their bosses in a real tough spot. So generally, nobody listens at those voices that say, "Well, we're still pumping out here in the patch, boy. We got us a lot of damn oil out here, boys. Come on out here, boys. We got lots of work going on out here, boys. Y'all need to get off your ass and get out there in the oil patch. Come out here and make you some money. All this bullshit, it ain't slowing down. It's keep going. It's a good job. Good. It's a good one. You just don't know what you're talking about." Well, those are the fucking guys that are going to get you in trouble. Those are the fucking guys that really don't know their elbow from their asshole about anything. But then you got your next group of people, and they're your pragmatics. That's probably where I fall into. These are the men and women who keep their heads down. They're out there doing the job. They stay ready. They don't panic. They're not pretending that everything is sunshine either, okay? They're not walking through this with their Pollyanna glasses on. They know that job security in the patch is a freaking myth, all right? They stack cash when times are good. They train for other positions. They're focusing more on the long term, right? They're looking at jobs that they can do within the industry that are going to be there when these field jobs play out when oil hits a certain price. They prepare for the dip even when things are riding high, right? These folks are the ones who are going to survive, not because they're lucky, but because they're real. Not because they're lucky, because they're real. They're understanding the strategy behind this. Okay. So let's zoom back out for a little bit. Let's take our telephoto lens. Let's zoom it back out a little bit. America exports two things. You hear me talk about this a lot. Barrels and bushels. Barrels and bushels. What I mean by that is oil and agriculture. And it's the strength of our economy. And our leverage on the world stage really depends on this. It comes from our ability to move things more efficiently. And remember what I say, there's always a catch. There's always a catch. While we can still sell bushels and barrels to anyone, okay? We can sell bushels and barrels to anyone. China, Europe, Brazil, you name it. We can sell it to them. But these countries do not rely on us. They do not rely on us the same way that we rely on them for manufactured goods and rare earth minerals. You didn't think of that, did you? Let's just say, for instance, you're an environmentalist and you're into this green energy thing and you want to build turbines. You need more rare earth elements. You want to make semiconductors? Same thing. You want modern things in America? You're still going to need components from China. You're still going to need parts that you get from them. And guess what? China does not have to buy from us. I know. That's a shocker to some of you people. That's a real shocker to some of you people. But China does not have to buy from us. They have BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And there's more of those countries joining the club. They've got BRICS. And they're not afraid to throw them. I mean, China does not depend on us as much as we want to think that China depends on us. They've got OPEC. They can go to Brazil. They can go to Russia. And they can get what they need on a daily, on a yearly, on a multiple year basis. This is reality. That's why I'm telling you, Trump's bring it back home plan. Bring it back home to the USA. That's why this is more complicated than it sounds. I mean, really. I mean, he talks about it like we can just flip a switch, bring the factories back, the rare earth processing, all that good stuff, the supply chains. We can just snap our fingers and within a week we're back up and running. American ingenuity. Here's a hard, cold fact. American ingenuity is quite lazy. Yeah. You're not going to be able to create a very complex industrial ecosystem overnight. That's a fantasy. That's a big fantasy. So this whole thing is really, it's a house of cards, right? This whole thing, bring it back home to America. Bring it back home to America. Bring it back home. Bring it back home. It's a joke. And I'm telling you, that's why that this rare earth deal involving Russia and Ukraine matters so damn much to Trump, because even just one component in the supply chain breaks down, the whole system crumbles. It's like trying to build a truck without a fuel injector. You've got to get everything. You've got to get everything in place or it just doesn't work. It's not going to run. So what now? A lot of people are talking about what now. Here's where I think we're at $65 a barrel. That's the magic number, but just barely. $65 to $75 a barrel. That's the magic number, but just barely, especially if you're playing the shale game, which most of these buffoons are. and rightfully so. But below that, Texas producers, especially in the Permian, are going to start pulling back. They're going to start pulling back. And I think, as I alluded to earlier, shale is fast, it's flashy, but it's also very, very, very fragile. And I want you to keep your mind on some price volatility. And I want you to keep your mind on decline rates that make this whole thing such a balancing act. I want you to be mindful of the dangerous personalities that are bad for business. Pragmatism is going to win in this case. And I think you also should keep in mind that on a global level, America's strength depends more on other things than just pumping oil. It depends on logistics, it depends on rare earth minerals, and it depends on public relations and diplomacy. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're in an all-out crisis, but we are in a very fragile balance. We are. And to everyone out there making a living in the oil field, we're going to have to stay sharp. We're going to have to stay grounded. We're going to have to stay real. We're going to have to stay focused on this. The people who survive this are the people in the industry who understand the risk and we manage it, not just the ones pretending that it doesn't exist. Okay, contracts and permits and all this stuff that the Railroad Commission hands out like it's flipping candy. You know, like docs used to hand out scripts. These people are just policy wonks, right? They're just policy wonks. That's what they are. They're low level bullshit policy wonks. And they contribute to this volatility, believe it or not. So I think we're going to have to sit back, relax, take our time, see where things go, and just ride this thing out. Because when you take it with a pragmatic approach, everything tends to work out just fine. All right. So thanks for listening to the Matt Pierce Blog Podcast. I am Matt Pierce myself. Do me a favor. Hit that like, follow, subscribe button. Share this episode with someone in the patch or somebody you know. And remember, it's not just about oil. It's not just about oil. It's about what the oil teaches us about ourselves. And it's about how we evolve from it. And it's what we can learn from this. So until next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Take care of yourself. And take care of your brother out there too, all right?